Hi, I'm Jasmine, the sequel, and I am not relatable. A special thank you to my patrons, Acrophobe, Christina, Wild Rose, Lauren Chris, Michael B. Petty, That British Unicorn, Jam Beans, Debbie Elliott, and D. Higgins. So today I have a little bit of a different type of video. I actually wanted to discuss the topic of whether or not Chantal, and maybe some of you guys, should start an OnlyFans. I think that one of the greatest things that the internet has given us is a wide range of different activities that have just been normalized through it, right? So fan fiction is a great example of that. OnlyFans, sex work would be another one. I am of the mindset personally that there's nothing wrong with with sex work, right? Sex work is real work, and I think that it should be legalized and given all of the other protections that the laws provides for everybody else employed in all other fields of work. And I think that OnlyFans is a great way for people to engage in that kind of work in a safe way, especially during the pandemic, but also in terms of physical safety. Chantal's a special use case, and I kind of wanted to give my thoughts on what I think would happen if Chantal engaged in it, the different points of concern that I have when it comes to Chantal getting into this field, and just basically open this up to discussion with you guys as well. See what you guys have to say about it. So the first thing that I want to bring up is judgment. Sex work is, at least historically, it has been viewed through a very negative lens, especially women who engage in sex work. And it's been used as a way to degrade women for a very, very long period of time. Unfortunately, that has a lasting stigma. And judgment from people is a really, really big part of that. Now, I'll be discussing the different ways in which that judgment can manifest and the sort of effects it has later on in the video as well. But just the perception of judgment as a whole can be pretty negative to a person, right? Your family, for example, can not be as supportive. They can decide that this is an avenue too far. They can decide that you're morally bankrupt. They might cut you off, or they might just distance themselves from you. And a lot of people need that kind of support in their lives. I think everybody, especially if you're used to having it, everybody needs somebody to rely on. But if you're used to having all of this support from your family and to suddenly have it be taken away, that can be very difficult. Another area in which this judgment can negatively impact you is just that it can really, really limit your dating pool. Not everyone is comfortable with having a partner who engages in sex work. I am not in this position, so it's hard for me to say. I would say that anything your partner wants to do with their body is give or take fine, as long as you are also okay with it, right? I don't think there's anything wrong with not feeling comfortable with having a partner who engages in sex work. I personally would never be able to be with someone who engaged in, say, extreme sports, or even who was an Olympic athlete, for example. Those sorts of things have a very, very negative toll on your body, and that will limit their lifespan. That will have negative impacts on them going forward, and I don't know if I can cope with the potential negative side effects of that. So that would be something that for me would be a big no-no. So I can understand if there's personal reasons like that for somebody to say no as well. And when you are in the kind of body that Chantal is, limiting that dating pool might make it significantly harder for her to find somebody that she connects with, that would be accepting of not just this avenue of her life, but also other things in her life. For example, just, her physical appearance, her profession, all of those things, like her YouTube channel, I meant to say when I meant profession. So I think that it can really make that aspect of your life very difficult. And if you're a person who wants, love, affection, just interest from somebody when it comes to, attraction, I think being engaged in sex work can make that a lot more difficult. And I suppose that you could think that, hey, maybe people won't find out. I will, wear a mask. I might, do something else. For Chantal, that might not be the option. She's a pretty well-known person. She's already been doxxed. People can find this information out about her. But even if you are not in that position, say you are somebody in the audience who's watching this video and thinking, maybe I'll start an OnlyFans. Understand that if you want to engage in this, and there's nothing wrong with doing it, just know that if your information is leaked and people do find out, that you would be okay with them knowing. Because the chances are that if you gain any kind of notoriety, that people will find out, right? Someone might dox you. And you have to be okay with it. You have to be able to live with the consequence of that, unfortunately. Another really important thing to consider if you're considering getting into OnlyFans is money. A really big reason why a lot of artists will create an OnlyFans is to be able to fund their lives, right? They want to be able to live, to basically earn a living wage. The average amount of money that a person makes on OnlyFans is about $180. For somebody of Chantal's notoriety and for somebody who has the kind of audience that she has, she could definitely make more money than that. But even if she makes $1,000, would it be worth it? Especially given the fact that she would have to invest a lot of that money, at least initially, back into her OnlyFans. And the amount of energy and effort required for her to create OnlyFans content is a lot more, I think, than the amount of energy and effort that she would have to expend in creating content for her YouTube channel, right? You can't just sit in an OnlyFans and just eat unless you're essentially just creating feeder content, which is something that Chantal has said that she is not comfortable doing, that she hasn't done before, and that she doesn't want to do now. So if you're not creating that kind of content, you might have to put more energy into it. You might have to dance. You might have to, move around a lot more. You might have to pose and find your angles and get the right kind of lighting equipment to make yourself look the best that you possibly can. You might have to get treatments done. You might have to, buy cute clothing. All of those things means a time, energy, and monetary investment back into your channel. Chantal hasn't really shown any ability to do any of that. A really big part of making your channel successful is also how comfortable you feel in front of the camera. If you aren't comfortable in your own skin, that's going to come across in your pictures. It's going to come across in your videos, especially because most people making OnlyFans content they're not like professional actresses and actors, right? They haven't had the kind of training required to really be able to mask your emotions. And people pick up on that, even if it's mostly subconsciously. So I don't know how comfortable she would feel being in front of a camera and exposing herself like that when she genuinely, a lot of times, will skip out on meeting with friends because she feels so self-conscious. And if you are that kind of person as well, where you don't feel comfortable being in public if you're looking, say, slightly less than perfect, right? Maybe this is not an avenue for you. Ultimately, I just think that the amount of time, energy, and effort required to really make something out of an OnlyFans account, to really make something out of that kind of content is maybe not worth it if you're not willing to put in that kind of energy. Essentially what I'm saying is that you really, really need to hustle hard to make this kind of thing worthwhile, because the negative downsides of it are definitely there. And to offset them, you have to work at it. And I don't think Chantal is really ready for the amount of work that it would take to make it worthwhile. And just one picture put on OnlyFans leaked will essentially be there forever, right? The internet is forever, but especially with explicit content like this, or even semi-explicit content, it's going to live in notoriety forever. So you're going to get all the negatives of it with just one picture, even if you decide to not post anything else going forward. So I would just say really evaluate honestly how much work you're willing to put into this, because if you're not going to give it your everything, it might be best to refrain from it. The last but not least, in terms of money that you want to keep in mind, is that it depends on how you're marketing yourself, but you might have a very niche audience. So for Chantal, she's a larger woman, right? She's a larger woman, and if she's going to be doing the mukbanging, eating on camera type of content for her OnlyFans as well, then she has to understand that only a certain percentage of people are actually going to want to watch that and or pay for it. So it has to be her fans, people who want to see her engaging in this kind of behavior in an explicit manner. And there might be people who are willing to go for it if it's free. There might be people who are willing to go for it if it's, a thinner woman, or might be willing to go for it if it's just Chantal in bikinis. But the combination of all of that might make it a very, very small subset of your audience. I don't even know how many people will sign up. On average, I think you get, 10% of conversion from your audience? That's like a really, really good, very high number. For something like this, I can't imagine it would be more than 1%. And that might not be enough to essentially put your dating life, if nothing else, at risk in the future. Another thing that becomes sort of tumultuous going forward when you have an OnlyFans is work employment, essentially. YouTube isn't something that's going to last forever. A lot of people, I think, have said this to her, but just to say it again, everybody's YouTube channel dies eventually, right? Everybody's channel rises and falls for the most part. There are some people who are very good at reinventing themselves, continuously staying relevant, mostly through drama. And yes, I am looking at Trisha Paytas, but a lot of people will have that huge peak in subscribers where they're getting the best views, they're doing the best ever, and then it slowly dies down. And then they have to reinvent themselves and they have to look for new avenues to apply the skills that they have. Chantal doesn't really have a lot of skills. There's not a lot that she does even in her content on YouTube right now. So those skills might not be as transferable going forward. And if she has something like OnlyFans, some more conservative avenues of employment might be close to her. There are people who are going to look down on her, like I said before, and this is another aspect of that. They will judge her negatively for having done this sort of content, and that might result in them not wanting to hire her for certain positions that she would be qualified for, which is another thing that she should keep in mind, that she has had large gaps in employment history. Already that's going to make it difficult for her to find work. And on top of that, if she has this, she might just become a candidate that they're happier avoiding. And the last issue, and I think the most important one, is the toll that it can take on your mental health. Sex workers are routinely, abused. I don't mean that just physically abused, though that is definitely also an issue. Since OnlyFans is an online platform, there's going to be a lot of verbal abuse that you're going to have to deal with, especially as a bigger bodied person. Chantal's personality traits aside, negative personality traits aside, I've always said that she does face a fair amount of criticism for just being a fat lady on the internet. And that will not get better when she is engaging in sex work. In fact, I think that might make it a lot worse. There is going to be some people who are going to be, happy with her, but there's also going to be a good amount of people who are going to call her names, call her disgusting things. They're going to send her negative comments. They might dox her again. They might dox her family members. There's also going to be people who are going to be really creepy about it. They might want to stalk her because they're overly enormed. They might send her unsolicited dick pics and just all manner of other creepiness that people engage in when they overly attach themselves to online creators. Unfortunately, in an avenue where sex is involved, that can get worse. And if you're not prepared to deal with that, it can really take you by surprise. Chantal often has not been able to deal with things in her life in a way that would be conducive to her negative health outcomes that she's currently facing. And I feel like if she engages in something like OnlyFans and if stuff starts going sideways, she might fall back to her pattern of eating to numb the pain. And I don't think that that's something she can keep up and hope to stay healthy in the future. She already has a lot of issues with food. I think adding trauma from verbal abuse from OnlyFans is only going to make it worse. And once more, I said this before, but I'll say it again. All of this is predicated on how hard she wants to work, how much effort she wants to put in. Most things in life are the more effort you put, the better your outcomes are going to be. But with OnlyFans in particular, it's already pretty saturated. There are famous people hopping on there every other day, and people right now are in a pandemic, even afterwards, the economy is going to take a while to recover. So they don't have the, most amount of money in the world, and people might not necessarily want to give it to somebody if they're not putting forward their best foot. Chantal also has a little bit of a bad history with starting projects, Patreon, and then abandoning them. So people might be a little bit more hesitant than they would be with an average person. Anyway, that is just my take on whether or not Chantal should start an OnlyFans. I don't want to say yes or no. Quite frankly, I don't know if I'm qualified to make that kind of judgment. If I was in her position, I wouldn't do it. But I'm saying that with the understanding that I think I have a little bit more clarity into how this stuff would affect me than I think Chantal actually has. I think she lacks a lot of self-awareness, and that is worrying. She's flirted with the idea before, and I feel like she's going to do it again if she's ever hard up for cash. And I genuinely think that it's not an avenue that's going to maybe make her happy in the long run. But looking at things and doing what's best for her in the long run is not a strength of Chantal. So, you know, I worry. I hope this video was interesting. I hope that you guys also took something out of it, especially if you guys are considering also joining OnlyFans. This video is, I hope, not meant to come off as a moral judgment. I don't care what people do in their spare time or how they earn their money. But I do care if you're going into it without a clear understanding of where it can lead you. And if you're not prepared for it, it can take you by surprise and you might end up being unhappy, and I don't want that for anyone. Anyway, I hope you guys like this video. Subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. Hit the notification bell down below if you want to know when I upload videos, and hit all so you know when I upload all of my videos. Give me a thumbs up if you like this video. You can give me a thumbs down if you hated it. That's totally okay. I respect everybody's opinion here. I have all my social medias linked down below. I've got Instagram where it's food stuff and life stuff, but I don't really have any life right now, so it's just food stuff. And even that's lacking because I haven't uploaded in forever. I will soon though, I promise. I've got Twitter where you can interact with me and where I have all the channel updates and just my opinions on random things and a little bit of shit posting and shit talking. So, if you're interested in that kind of thing, that's where you can find it. I've also got Patreon. Think of Patreon as a tip jar for the internet. So if you like the job that I'm doing here and you would like me to continue, consider tossing a few coins in my direction. You don't have to. It's not necessary. But if you did, I would really appreciate it, and it really does help me out. I actually bought my lights and the backdrop that you guys are seeing behind me with money that I've earned through my channel and some of the funds that have been given to me by my lovely patrons. So it really does make a really big impact, and all the funds that you guys provide me with will go directly back into this channel, I promise. If you guys would rather become a community member, that option is also available, and it's available down below. So check that out and become a member of the prequels. Anyway, that will be it from me. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Jasmine, the sequel, and I am not relatable. Peace.